this committee meeting is open, and we have only one thing on our agenda, two things, actually. The thing on the agenda is the discussion of the draft short-term rental general bylaw. And I believe, Jed, are there copies up by the door for people who come in?
Yes, there are.
Great, okay, that's good, and I think we all have copies. And I
Yep.
think the other thing not on the agenda, but should be, is to thank Maura, who produced this. Yes.
Hey.
It looks like it was written by a lawyer, huh? No, I'm
Yeah,
just
I
kidding.
know. People aren't really good about thanking lawyers, and I think that they should be. This is a really good job. So thank you very much, and it's exactly when you said it would be.
I hit my deadline. Thank goodness.
Yes,
I tried.
so good work,
Just have to
thanks.
just put everything else on the back burner
I
and,
didn't do anything else for the whole month except for this.
It's so well written, I think all future Board of Health regulations should be written by you first, and then, I'm just kidding.
No,
So instead of writing them, and then you say, what is this?
yes, they should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
just tell her what you want, and you'll have it.
So we asked for this date because we were aimed at making it to town meeting in November. And I think the warrant closes on September 12th, is it? When?
I don't know, but it's not,
on the 30th,
Correct.
so it closes Friday
Of this week?
of this week.
Of this
And
week.
the select board votes on the warrant on the 9th.
So, in your,
Tight window.
in the opinion of our professionals here, professionals for this purpose, what do you think the likelihood is of our being ready and making it onto the warrant with a good product?
I think it depends what happens over the next hour. We certainly have some recommendations to discuss and some suggested edits. We might be able to wrap them up today to be able to submit something for the
So it's
warrant.
possible. We
Absolutely.
can do it.
Yeah, I feel good about it.
mm-hmm,
Okay, let's make good use of this hour.
okay.
Should we then go page by page? I think that might be the most efficient way.
Want to just
To
read
see?
through it, because I know Erica just said she didn't
I'm
really have a
almost done.
chance. Oh, okay, go ahead.
Okay? So, first paragraph, purposes intent. Any suggestions for improvement?
Not really. It's pretty
No.
much exactly what we said.
It is. Next, we have definitions of what an owner is, what a short-term rental is, any issues here that you can see.
No?
No?
I have a question. It occurred to me, we certainly have managed to forbid corporate ownership and to restrict ownership to actual, real, live, natural persons, so it's everything that we asked for. With this language, could a corporation use a straw person?
So what would that look like? So an LLC could set up, the corporation would set up an LLC, and then the LLC would own.
No, I think the straw person would own the building,
Mhm.
but be acting on behalf of a corporation. That would make it an actual straw man, we used to say, but now person.
It would be complicated. I mean, I think theoretically they could, but they would have to be setting up small little entities each
They
time
could
they
only
did
have
that.
one.
Well, you're saying, can they circumvent the system? They would have to set up like different forms of ownership for each unit, right?
They'd need a different person for each license. So
Each,
it's almost- it's
each unit would be
impractical.
its own LLC with its own, like, maybe it could be even a group of owners. But then, we wouldn't even really know if that was owned by a parent corporation, would we? How could we know that?
I don't know.
We take listings and we look at the tax records to confirm we're talking
Yeah.
to the owners for scam purposes.
Could they,
Okay.
could they do it, they need to provide a tax ID? No?
Oh, that's right.
Well, they have to register with the state.
Correct. In
That's
that
right.
tax ID, they would need multiple tax IDs. I'm not way out of my league, I'm just bringing it up.
That's a good point, though, because the tax ID would identify the actual owner, and then that would pop up if it was,
So,
I feel like it could happen, but then you'd be going through a lot of trouble to create the shells for the corporation that
Right.
wouldn't have the intended tax implications, or there would be so much of a problem to do that, that the financial benefit wouldn't
Wouldn't be
outweigh
there.
the hassle.
Or so
Mhm.
they'd have to pay that person. Okay. So I just wanted to raise that issue. So moving on, license to operate. And let's do the page of them, A, B, C, D. Any either questions or suggestions for changes or additions, deletions?
So I had a question, and it's related to 3A, and it says, first obtaining a license from the Board of Health. I'm curious if it matters, would that technically be the Health Department?
Yes, it would be.
And does
I think it's a
that-
permit. It's not a license, it's to obtain the permit.
So it's,
Yeah.
I think I have license written throughout
You could just, long as
instead of a
I
permit.
think we all talked about license because I think that's what it really is. Just like with a lodging house or other,
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking, that it's
Mhm.
styled after the lodging house license, where a license is a stronger interest in land, and so a permit is more of, it has less of a property interest. I'm getting a little bit too technical, but a license is just a stronger, technical, legal way to exert control over the rental.
right, because the select board doesn't have jurisdiction over permits.
Right.
And I don't think, well, the planning board does.
It's not going to come to the planning board.
It's going to be the Board of
It's gonna
Health.
go-
we issue, some things are, we issue permits and licenses. I don't know why some things are called licenses and some called permits.
Mhm.
We issue a food service permit.
Well, license is used consistently throughout this
I think it's-
document, so
That works for me.
let's go for it. And a license definitely comes with a number, and it has to be renewed annually, and it has to be, and when we get there, it should be posted in the building that's being licensed through that owner.
And I think to address the other part of the issue is I also have written throughout the proposed bylaw where it says Board of Health, it will also say or designee.
Right.
And I think the intent here is that the Board of Health will set up initial regulations, including whatever the application process looks like, but the actual work, the day-to-day operations will be handled by the Health Department. And only if there's a violation and a hearing is required, that would go before the Board of Health. But the actual administration of this bylaw would be handled by Scott and Scott alone.
Well, the alone part is sort of in this, because the blank of the price of the license, that's where the money to make sure it's not Scott alone, that
Right.
he can hire people, so that number's going to matter. How will that number be determined?
It's set by the Select Board.
Yeah.
That'll be a law.
Well, it's set by the select board based on what, so we have to do our annual fee, and I would request a fee for this.
Mhm.
That fee would then go to the select board for approval.
Mhm.
All right, so you have your fee hearing coming up usually in the fall. I would have to submit a fee for that.
So we'll strike Board of Health and put in
Well, you don't,
the Health Department?
okay, so the health department is basically the day-to-day operations of the Board of Health,
Right.
okay? So,
But we don't really want the license to go to the Board of Health for approval. You want to do that administratively, right?
Right, so what
Yeah.
we'll do is at the end of A, put a comma and then say or designee.
yeah,
And then the Board of Health will designate all of that administrative work that we're talking about
Actually, it
to
says it
Scott's
now.
department.
It says it right now, or designate.
At the end of 3A?
Yes.
It's the second
the-
sentence.
Oh, the
Oh,
first
to
sentence
the
doesn't.
application to the Board of Health. And same thing then with the license. Without first obtaining a license from the Board of Health or its designee.
Right, and,
I'll put it, make sure it's everywhere where it says Board of Health.
Right.
and are they all going to expire on the same date? That sounds like an avalanche, or are they
No.
going to
there's no other
expire-
way to do it. All our permits expire on a particular day. Having them expire daily, you have three, so you have, let's say we have a number, 3,000, so you're gonna have on average 10 expire a day. That would be kind of tricky. Normally, our permits all expire on December, all restaurants in Falmouth would be December 31st.
Can't we automate it so they can just do it online and not even require you to interact?
Well, you could
No,
just
you wanna
put
collect the money.
annual, you could just put annually, period, and let us determine, because we did change food service permits. Actually, they were December 31st, now that I think about it. Phil, a lot of people are on vacation in the holidays. It was hard for Phyllis to issue the liquor licenses on top of the food, so we moved it to the 13th. But give time, because it's, that's kind of a tough time to be issuing hundreds upon hundreds of permits.
Yeah.
So we moved it to the 13th. So if you could put period at annually, to be determined by,
And then you let
or
the
whatever, and we'll.
people who administer that website that we're gonna.
Correct,
get-
yeah, so, it could be, it definitely would not be during the summer. It would be some, it could be, it
that's
may
a good
work for us
addition.
later, January 31st. It may work some other way.
But your suggestion, to be determined by,
Yeah.
is probably the way to go, so it's already assigned responsibility.
I mean,
You could just say the
Annually.
license shall be issued
renewed
annually,
Period, maybe? Does it need to have
No.
that?
renewed.
How about this? Term of the license. Licenses shall be issued annually and shall expire unless renewed on a date set by the health department.
Fine,
Okay, good.
okay.
Yeah, we'll have to work through that.
Comment from the gentleman out in the audience.
Yes, please.
Are we being
I'm sorry.
recorded?
Yeah.
Yeah, could you use the
You need to
microphone, please?
come up here and give us your name, please,
Of course.
when you get there.
Tom Crane, Juniper Point Road. Last night, I sent Jed a couple technical edits. They're overwhelmingly technical. I'm happy to raise them with the committee if you want to take them now. I don't know what process you have for public input.
They all have them, actually. I
Oh,
printed
good.
them out for everyone, so they have them with,
Okay.
I said
Oh.
those comments are on top.
Okay,
So there were some questions about under definitions. Thank you.
So do you want to go back and address the definition item?
yeah, let's do it as we go. But now we're down to 3/4 of an hour, unless people are willing to stay late. Okay, under definitions, a recommendation made by, is it Mr. Courtney?
Crane.
Crane, Mr. Crane, adding language, in which case each natural person shall be deemed an owner. That actually, you're right, that's really technical, and I think this is something you might talk with Mara about, because she's the one who would decide.
So I take recommendations from this board and not from members of the public.
Ah.
If you want to have that discussion about these changes, I'm happy to talk about I think that this is too wordy, and I don't think it's necessary.
Good, that's all we need to know. Okay, so thanks for, we'll just do them one by one. Okay, next, under short-term rental rather than payment, remuneration. I would actually reject that. I think that's overly formal. Payment is common language nowadays.
What are we looking at? Not
The
this,
second,
The blue.
the blue line?
yeah,
Came
put
from
them
Mr.
side by
Crane.
side, you can,
And we've got a couple, but we'll do them as we go. Okay, so on the rest of the page, A, B, C, D on page 1, doesn't say there where we are going to establish the cost or how the cost will be determined. Should that be included here? Where do we put the money engine to keep this thing going?
So are you talking about the fee, the license fee?
Yes.
So that's in section 3C. Oh, no, I'm sorry. That's just that it won't be waived. No, I think you're right. I think there does need to be something added that says the fee shall be determined. The fee shall be determined by the select board?
Shall be set.
On an annual basis by the select board.
Yeah,
Yep.
I can add that. Does it go
Right.
in 3?
It sounds as if it
Yeah, I
does.
think it belongs,
That's where
because
the
that's where you're
license fee
defining
cost
licenses.
is.
All right, I will add a section somewhere in,
In C,
add it in C. So the fee will
right,
be set by the
license
select
fee,
board. Yes.
set annually by the select board, so that it's not a fixed
Yeah,
number.
write it after C, what you've written is good, but you can just add, the license shall be set by the select board
Done.
annually.
Sounds good.
So really quick question, annual licenses, you don't want to consider licenses that span multiple years? Is it an annual?
yeah, annual, because if you want to revoke it, it's gonna, or not renew it based on a,
Well, you're gonna have something in here that's gonna allow a revoke or a hearing of the Board of Health later on. So that's always gonna be there. It's not gonna matter whether it's a 1 year or a 2 year. It can be revoked upon a hearing with the Board of Health.
Yeah.
If we could manage it, it would be nice if they didn't have to do it every year. What's the reason for doing it every year? Is to get another payment? Or-
All other permits and licenses are annual.
Oh, yeah.
Consistency.
It's consistent for that reason. It's also, it's easier to manage if there's a problem. Revoking a license, you need to have a hearing, you need to have some sort of due process.
Non-renewal is easier.
Yeah, non-renewal is easier. And
Okay.
it also makes sure that your current list is active.
That's what it's almost, yeah. I mean,
Just have to-
non-renewal without a hearing wouldn't occur unless they didn't pay.
We're just gonna have to make sure it's very easy to renew online and just, you know,
And we can do that through the new permitize. I think all the renewals can be
Okay,
done.
but it's a
Like, if I
reminder
can
to the
answer-
owner that this is something that is tightly regulated, the town is interested in what you're doing, and don't you forget it. I mean, it just seems better.
Yeah, we would actually be using this software, not using the permitize for this particular thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the regulations could specify what's required for the renewal.
Right, and you can upload everything.
Yes, that's why we haven't, let's say we go with this company, we haven't been able to build it until we have this. Did you have a question?
No, you actually, I was just gonna say that annual, for the same reasons that you gave, I agree, it's easier to non-renewal and all of that.
you got your own microphone over there?
Yeah, you gotta, yeah, but they can't see him on the,
Unfortunately, I can be here for about 5 minutes, but this is awesome.
Okay.
So, thank you very much. I just want to say that, because I mean, so,
Great.
thank you, everybody, this is really great. Thank
Great.
you.
Glad you think so. Okay, so, moving on. We're on to the top of the second page, and let's do the application requirements down through 9. Is anything missing that you think is important? It should be there.
We're still on 3,
Scott?
right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a parking expert. Are we going to be sharing, I'm sure you don't want me to be sending to your staff to see if that parking plan's suitable.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'd be looking, we'd have to have some sort of guidance document to go with this
Right.
that would talk about a parking plan.
Yeah, what does that mean?
Yeah, because that means, honestly, it means nothing to, I can't judge.
Well, it
Yeah.
does. It means you need a space for each bedroom.
Yeah, but I
Okay,
gotta
what's a par-
say, it's problematic where it says no more than 1 parking spot per bedroom, because what if they already have a big parking lot? We're not gonna make them fill it in.
At least one?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I think that's all that your department would be reviewing it for, is just to
you have
make
to
sure.
get on that, yeah,
there
you're
are
gonna be in the,
yeah.
Hi,
spots.
sorry. The reason
You have to
why
give your
is
name.
Martina Khan, Sherwood Drive. The reason why I like this whole idea is 1 per bedroom. You can even do it 1 per bedroom plus 1. Because for someone such as my neighbor, who has a 200-foot-long driveway, but a legal 2-bedroom house, who's had 47 people staying at his home, if you have this restriction, then he can't let 25, 30 cars park on his property.
Okay.
So that's, it's just something like everything else, it's just, in my opinion, for control. So I think it's an excellent suggestion. It's the only way to regulate it, because people who have very big driveways will abuse this, or their renters may abuse it.
But I guess at the same time, he's still gonna have a 200-foot driveway. We're not gonna make him change it.
right,
It's
yeah.
not- You're just allowed that many cars.
Yeah, so the,
I
it
guess
should
in
be
that sense, it's good.
overnight, no, because
Yeah,
they
and
should, they should be allowed to a cookout company, so it should say, overnight.
Parking, yes,
Parking.
that's the other,
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for
Okay.
overnight parking at the end of it?
How about 1 overnight parking spot per bedroom?
Okay,
How about that?
yeah.
Perfect, yeah, that's good.
Guys, this is teamwork here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Look at this.
Under the 24-hour contact information, should that be local contact?
Yeah. That's a
Of the
good idea.
responsible party managing or operating this rental.
Of responsible
Yeah.
party?
I love the last one. Are we having the fire department come in and inspect all the smoke detectors for the certificate of compliance?
No, there's an online thing, there's this company that we're
Oh,
gonna be
that's
getting.
right.
Hold on, we'd have to,
You
We
can
have to-
walk, you can walk through with a
Yep,
FaceTime.
I remember that now.
I've got to say, though,
Yeah.
the town's going to have to commit to paying, that's an extra through a third party on top of the third party, so we call that what?
Not the town or the
Or just have
resident.
them,
The rental company, let's say we choose GovOS,
Yeah.
has this company called Breezeway
Mm-hmm.
that'll allow you to upload a self-inspection that we could design. okay? We haven't been able, that's another added cost. Let's say it's $75,000 a year to have this company sort of review these. So that's where, I don't know how it's gonna look, I guess is what I'm saying. Remember
I
we,
guess I got that wrong. I thought that they said that the people could pay approximately $75 to the company to have that additional service if they weren't capable of fulfilling it themselves.
So have you two been part of the review of the third-party manager?
I have.
I went to I got offered by a different company to join a webinar where they explained what their services are.
Ah,
And they have very similar services to the company that the town has been more closely looking at.
so you're not looking at Granicus?
It's just, it appears to be a higher-end vehicle than Granicus.
Whatever, I just wondered.
So what about if the fire, does having them, can a civilian call the fire, like as a realtor to get my smokes for my closings?
I don't think you have enough bodies to get 3,000 a year, or 2,000, whatever that number is.
Well, I think it's just one time, because they're good for 10 years, but yeah, I think, that just got me excited because there's so many smoke detectors missing on all these rentals. So I'm like, oh, if they had to do what we have to do for a sale, that would save a lot of lives.
Right.
So, but it's up to you guys.
Well, if they're good for 10 years, then you just have to show maybe just copy of current smoke, most recent
Yeah, and
smoke
and
detector.
pictures of the smokes, because those are good for 10 years. Smokes they could come off the ceiling within a year, and it's, yes, Scott.
Yeah, it's good.
Here's the thing. I'm
Yes,
just gonna throw out the fly, because I love to be the contrarian, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
When it comes into a bylaw, the letters and the words matter so much, because to change anything, it has to go back to town meeting.
Yeah.
So we don't know exactly how this inspection and this whole thing's gonna look at the back end, okay? So this Granicus said they can do that, but we may get this and Granicus, hey, well, you guys don't want the rooms measured? Well, how are you gonna, there may be some things, but I'll say, well, it's not written in here. Should there be something in there that says, any other thing that the health department requires or something?
Why don't we do this? Because the way that this is written, it's that these are things that I derived were the most important to this group.
Yeah.
And this section of the bylaw says, at a minimum, those are the requirements for the application. But it's written that way for a couple of reasons. One, to say, you definitely need these things.
Yeah.
But the Board of Health, or you as their designee, when you're putting the application together, you can add other requirements.
I missed the minimum part, at a minimum.
Yeah.
That's
So-
the key word.
So why don't we take 9 off for now, and you can add it back into the application later if
As
if
the
we
minimum.
find out, a better way to
I think that's
administer
good.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just a level of detail that we may not be able to pull off quite easy. That's
Not
all.
yet.
Yeah.
And then when we can,
Or maybe we can say smoke detector compliance and just leave it a little more vague that we will be looking for smoke detectors.
but to Scott's point, I wouldn't want to, if we don't have a way to figure out what we're actually asking for, or what that's going to look like, maybe we don't put it in the bylaw, and we put it in the regulations that are more malleable and doesn't require town meeting approval.
And what regulations would those
Oh,
be?
where are those coming from?
So this also allows the Board of Health to promulgate rules, regulations, policies, anything. And that is a very common thing to do when you are giving this kind of authority to one particular department. That way, if there's a change in the law, or if there's something that we've forgotten, or if there's something like the smoke detector where we're not quite sure how we're gonna do it, the town meeting can empower the Board of Health or the designee to tidy that up later through regulations.
Maybe, it's so important, I'd love to see it stay in somehow. Maybe we could say smoke detector compliance as determined by Board of Health or Fire Department or others.
Or just smoke detector compliance and leave it? Because knowing that you're able to add regulations, it keys you into, that's gonna be one of the regulations.
Can we do that?
I'd rather not, given what I'm just hearing. So, and I'm not saying that it's not important, and I'm not saying that it won't be done, but this bylaw is very hard to change once we put it in, because we have to wait for a town meeting, and we have to wait for town meeting to vote on it.
That's
The
why I'm saying
regulations
it's,
will
if
be
we
more
don't have it in.
malleable, and we can explain to the Board of Health that we don't want this to be dropped. We just want them to figure out a way for Granicus or whatever, or GovOS or whatever they're gonna do to be able to allow the town to accept the certification that we can. We don't know what that looks like here, from what I'm hearing from,
Right, but,
from the group.
okay, go ahead.
So, it's important that
I'm gonna
I communicate to you that we're not dropping this. It's going to come back, but it will just come back through the regulations as promulgated or on the application instead of in the bylaw. And it's not gonna make it less important if it's in the regulations or in the application.
What-
It just, we need to finesse it a little more, and we don't have enough information right now to put in the bylaw.
Okay, just to throw this out again, we've been trying since even, I think, since I've been here in 2018, to pull out old bylaws and make them Board of Health regulations when they apply to the Board of Health. Example would be stables. We had a stable bylaw, we needed a stable regulation. So when you undo a bylaw and you make it a regulation, now you have the malleability of it.
Yep.
Does this belong as a Board of Health regulation rather than a bylaw?
No,
Okay, just asking the question.
it does not.
But you see what I was thinking, and the logic, my logic was wrong, but, you know.
So
Okay,
what this
let's-
does
let's
is
all-
it-
keep
I'm just-
moving
yeah,
along.
Yeah, we do, but for bylaw drafting and for creation of a local code, in my experience, what the bylaw does is it sets the general parameters, and then the Board of Health is gonna be able to fill in the gaps. And it's gonna be able to fill in gaps that we don't quite have all the information for. You don't want something in a bylaw that is iffy, or is TBD, or you don't quite know exactly what it's gonna look like yet.
Even if it's just a reference to say smoke detector compliance as per Board of Health or Fire Department? I mean, that just lets them know that they need to look further to make sure what they have to do to comply.
And it will be in the application. So I hear what you're saying, I disagree with you. So if the group wants to put that back, keep this, then I'm more than happy to keep it in. But hearing the feedback that I've heard, I don't recommend for this to stay here anymore.
And you still
I'd just
feel,
like to say that I can see why Doug is insisting on it. We have said in our purpose and intent that it's to promote safe, healthy environment. And then we look at what is required, and the smoke detector, most things are about, proofs and things. This is the only one that deals with health and safety.
I can't keep
Yeah, I
explaining
don't know.
Well, I
myself.
think the
So-
other, and the other thing too is, smoke detectors is one important thing. I mean, we're gonna start asking for, I may have to start asking for a de-leading certificate if
Right.
you have a child under the age of 6. That's a regulation under the code for the lead laws. That would be what we would put under the Board of Health regulations. This is a detail that falls in the housing code, right? It's,
So could
all I'm
a,
saying is, there's other, million other things that are like smoke detectors that are also important. Now you're gonna get to number 27, 28, 29 by the time you start
Oh,
listing
that's a
them.
point.
okay, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, you also have to do CO detectors, so there's definitely more later in regulation.
Yeah.
And the lead covers now pregnant women too in the law, so there's a whole bunch of health issues that,
Well, could we have number 9 say all health and safety as per,
compliance.
That's
Or
too
any-
wide. I mean, that's wild.
would that be too open-ended?
Comply with the state housing code.
That's in another place in the bylaw.
That's true.
Yeah.
Would
What
it
do
be,
you wanted to say?
Dropping
i-
nine.
if it would just say compliance for all health and safety issues? See other,
That's the next section, isn't it?
oh,
As
okay.
with other laws, comes right up there.
All right, for now, I'll concede that number 9 comes off, and we'll go through the rest and see.
Okay, good. We're in agreement now, moving. Compliance with other laws, anything else you want that to say, or say it differently?
You wanna specify the housing code at all, but not just as broad enough?
You can put the housing code in. I mean, it's covered by
The general. code.
saying regulations.
Yeah, no,
You
it
could
is.
squeeze
It
in,
is.
in accordance with this bylaw, all housing code and other local, state, and federal laws and
It
regulations,
works.
if you wanted it.
Do you want to add that?
No, it is covered, I just,
Okay, ownership. This is one that was really important to us because we wanted to prohibit owned by corporations, and that is B. So what was important to us is really covered. I particularly like C. No owner entitled to more than one license. However, we had talked about grandfathering. Where are we going with that? It doesn't show up anywhere here.
Grandfathering doesn't apply for general bylaws. It only comes up in the zoning context, which is one of the many reasons why this is a general bylaw, not a zoning bylaw. So there's no grandfathering provisions at all.
Is that how we want to leave it? We do want to.
For now, we might get challenged, but let's see
Not
what,
many. Yeah, we won't get many challenges on that. It's mostly individual.
right. I mean, it's, if there's one or two here and there, maybe they'll transfer ownership to their husband or wife, and we won't hear about it again.
Great, because I thought that one was really particularly good. And no fractional ownership, we had said that also.
Yes.
So prohibitions. Oh, I'm sorry. Does anyone else want to modify section 5?
So there's no interest in 2 licenses, just 1.
One.
I mean, I think if we're ahead of the curve and we're not, putting people into a tough situation, maybe we'll hear about it at town meeting probably, if there is.
Right, making it 2 licenses, we're doubling our problem potentially.
Just want to make sure.
Mr.
Okay,
Crane, Mr. Crane.
thank you for bringing it up.
wants to speak
Mr.
again.
Crane?
Would you like me to go?
Yeah,
Would you
because
please
we're being
connect,
recorded.
To FCTV, so that anything that's said can be heard and seen at home.
Thank you. So my margin note just expressed a concern, and that is that individuals could very easily form multiple LLCs, and then they would still, because the LLC is the owner. I had drafted earlier what I thought was affixed to that under the definition, and that was the rationale for it. But I am concerned about individuals forming multiple LLCs, and I think that could be a loophole here. I would also add, it's not in my draft, but individuals could form more than one trust. But if you make the trustee or the LLC owners the owner, you solve that problem. That was the purpose of my drafting on page 1. I don't think it's the last word on it, but that was the reason for it. Thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Mara, how do we address that?
Well, I think we talked about that.
We did.
Yeah.
It's just the fact that the amount of hassle to do it, it's not likely that corporations are gonna come around and do it, but an individual would probably take the time to do that as long as, but we can
LLCs
trace.
are very easy to form. They're not a complicated thing.
No, I'm not saying it is complicated, but we were thinking in terms of corporate ownership. If one, like Realty Corp, wanted to buy a bunch of
But
these.
an LLC really is a corporation. They're like a
It is,
corporation.
it is,
They're like a corporation by a different name.
yeah. I don't think we can stop LLCs from owning properties, right? Can we?
No.
Right.
So is the goal, I'm trying to figure out what the problem is we're trying to solve. Maybe we can think about it that way.
I just
Don't want
had
corporations
this,
Sneaking in.
I just had this idea that when the next market crash comes and real estate is cheap,
Yeah.
I don't want to have some hedge fund corporation develop a realty group and come and buy up streets and chunks of land and turn it into rental, Partyville.
So then, what we're trying to prevent is having a company make a bunch of LLCs. Well, that doesn't fit the definition of owner, because the LLC, under our definition already, there has to be a natural person as part of the LLC.
And they're going to have to submit, would they have to submit their own social security number, or, because then they're identifying themselves as an individual? How would we?
So
They have to get an individual state number for each house, so
Right.
that's gonna show the same person owning it, if you look at
The
those.
same LLC.
Well, when they,
Well, yeah, when they're registering for that tax ID number,
yeah,
the state's gonna have it in their database that this person already has that tax ID number. I
yeah.
don't know if it's traceable back to individual town regulations that the state would say, oh, sorry, you already have a tax ID number, you can't have 2 in Falmouth. I don't think.
No, we don't do
LLC
that.
is limited liability, and I think that,
Corporation, yeah.
that means an individual can hide inside an LLC. It will be hard for you to know about those, who are those individuals, and are they reappearing in other applications?
I guess that's true, you won't really
So,
know.
How many,
So do you want to then prevent, so an LLC has to, all members of an LLC have to be natural people. They have to be actual people. You can't be a
Identified.
corporation or another LLC.
yeah,
I'm wondering aloud, do we want to require that every owner in any LLC only be allowed to own one, only be allowed to be issued one license?
I think that's the intent.
That's the intent.
I think that's the intent, but it
Okay.
doesn't quite say it,
I've always
Yeah,
thought it
let's
was
see if
gonna
I
be
can-
hard to do, but
Figure that out.
yeah. Okay, so
I'll
we
see if I
leave
can
that
figure that
problem
out.
with you.
Yeah,
Okay,
all right.
so on prohibitions, anyone want to comment on ABC?
no, I think these are good points.
Mr. Crane?
You might want to sit closer.
I just thought under C, it might be helpful if you added the words electronically amplified music. I said enhanced, but electronically amplified music, because it's not quite there, what's noise, but I think that's when you start to get into trouble.
Yeah.
So that's just for your consideration. Thanks.
I believe we're working on a noise bylaw that would take care of that. Did you catch what I was saying? There's also in the works.
I hear
noi-
you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're
I was
welcome.
not aware of that.
Yeah. So this is where the rubber meets the road for me, doesn't it? You know, when
What
I
do
get
you
a
mean?
complaint. When I get a complaint, this is the nuisance part.
Right,
Yeah.
So this is the rubber meets the road.
Well, you're not gonna get them anymore. They're gonna go to the phone number that's associated with that rental.
And if it
Yeah, I'll
doesn't,
still get some.
sure, that's, yes. And
They're
Mr.
gonna-
Renshaw's not gonna get
They're
any
gonna run to
calls
Scott.
either.
okay, so do you think that this is enough language to
It-
prevent
I
private
don't- I don't
parties? I
think-
see private parties named as prohibited.
No,
I
private
think it was
parties
in
are
Truro
not
or
prohibited.
Yarmouth,
Private parties aren't prohibited from this. Commercial event parties are.
so far.
Commercial events,
But I'm
right.
wondering if we are missing something that we might want to address.
Well,
Where
I
did
can,
see
I can
it?
tell you as the health agent, I'm ignoring complaints on somebody who wants to have a party at their house on a Saturday night if they're gonna have a few people over. I mean, we can't get to the point where we're gonna be like, you know, we can't be
Yeah.
to the point where, hey, you know,
You can only have,
after Jeopardy, we need to be shut down. That's
You-
not what this should do.
you can only have 2 beers.
10 PM noise ordinance.
You know, the hard, some of this is hard for us. I mean, like, okay, odors. Well, it does say odors, and they're doing their fire pit again, and we need to shut that fire pit down.
We
And if
need
you
a
don't
more
think we get that type
authoritarian
of
health
complaints, we
person.
do. So it's very, very tricky. It's still gonna be up to us to subjectively look. I don't think you could write anything more that would work. You mean, as far as like, be like airtight for everything, because everything's sort of nuanced.
Yeah, I mean, I'm uncomfortable with this section anyway, just because it's subjective. Nuisance is subjective. I think we need it, but as the list is problematic, no matter what we do with it. So it doesn't matter to me whether we add electronically amplified and enhanced music or not, because I do think that this is, it's gonna be a cause of, it's gonna be a problematic thing to enforce.
Yeah, and
But we can't not have it in there.
right, so look at the first sentence. No short-term rental shall create a result in the disruption of peace. So the way it's written is somebody tells me, the neighbor, you're my neighbor.
Yeah.
You call and you say, it's disturbing my peace, it's disrupting my peace. I have to call it a violation, because it doesn't define, I think it somehow should have something about it as determined by the health department or something like that, or, because it just says shall create the disruption of peace. Well, a lot of people do have very narrow thresholds, right? And that's, we're just gonna have to.
But your discretion comes in at the point that it goes beyond a call from the neighbor. They have now brought in someone from your office or you,
Yeah.
and your judgment is going to be whether or not they get a ticket or a violation.
Yeah.
You don't even have to say that, because that's the process
Well,
that would determine it.
and normally it's gonna be the police because it's gonna be a Saturday night or something.
Right,
you
so
know,
it wouldn't be you. And you
I don't know how to say it, I don't
No,
either.
I know exactly what you're saying, and that's what I'm afraid of. But there are two things that I think will help us in trying to enforce this. One is this last phrase at the end, or any other nuisance beyond that which normally occurs in the immediate residential area. So you do have a comparator there.
Yeah.
The other thing is, we have to hope that the noise bylaw passes, because then you'll have objective standards to measure that. But I don't know how to not have this in there.
No, I
I
agree.
think just having it in there is good guidance.
It's good guidance. It's at least a warning.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, got a couple more.
I don't have any
And I'm,
changes.
is it, I don't know if I heard whether Mr. Crane's suggestion should be added or not. Did you want to weigh in on that?
Well, music is music. I feel like if it's loud enough, it doesn't have to be electronically enhanced for it to bother me.
Right, I think that vibration, light, glare, noise,
Yeah, I think,
all covers it, because you can amplify it and turn it way down.
especially if it's horrible
You can
music.
amplify it and turn it up. I
I
mean,
want
it's
to listen to that.
it's the decibel level, and I would assume the new, if that's the right term, the new noise ordinance, whatever it will be, is going to be in those terms. I see that there's nothing here about an occupancy limit. If you have 3 bedrooms, and each one has a couple of beds, so there you are with that number of people, but you could stuff a lot more people in there if you want, every couch, mattresses on the floor. How do you limit occupancy? Should we limit occupancy?
We talked about this. So every house has an occupancy permit, or a certificate of occupancy, right? Well, that'll have, like, you do a
Yeah, but it doesn't have a
determination.
number on it, certificate of occupancy.
It's per bedroom, based on this,
There is no
but there's
occupancy
no
number.
number. And we're not allowed to set the number because it's understood to be discriminatory to do so.
Really?
Yes.
So the 2 per bedroom on the permit's no longer on it?
It currently is, because we're still on the old 1970.
Okay, just asking.
Right, but there's a series of federal cases in the 90s that made all of that
Yeah,
obsolete.
sure.
Yeah, it is addressing the housing code. You won't like the number, but, because it's big. But it goes by square footage.
Yeah. I
So
was
we're
gonna
better
say
off to
that.
just not mention it, maybe?
75 square feet for the first person, 50 square feet per that. So it's like three per bedroom is probably kind of closer with your average size bedroom. That's
Mhm.
about 120 square feet, probably an average bedroom, you say?
Where would someone
Maybe
coming
2,
to be
3.
licensed learn that?
Well, we have the housing code. Well, okay, so, well, look, I think in this thing is, when they register, they're gonna have a link to the housing code, right? And that could, or we can parse that out and put that in there as part of their application.
Maybe we should refer to the advertised occupancy shall be adhered to, or something like that,
Well,
because,
that's not gonna help the lady who just left, where the occupancy listed in an Airbnb was 15 or some number like
Oh,
that.
is it?
It's a 3-bedroom home.
hmm,
That does not, but,
I think that's why we put the parking requirement in.
maybe occupancy guidelines should be too, as what you refer to from the 70s, whatever that is. if
well, that was a bylaw written back then, by the town, for 2
Mhm.
per bedroom. And it says also the Board of Health can make a determination otherwise, which meant, the large bunk rooms that are 20 by 20 can have more than 2. And so we'd go out and measure the rooms. We've only done that a handful of times, so that's not something we do often. That's what the bylaw says now.
Okay, maybe we should just put that in and just say occupancy, Falmouth bylaw, occupancy is as such as what Scott just said.
Well, you just said that's not something we want to do because there's been case law.
Oh,
Yeah, if, whatever the bylaw is, that it's outdated and not enforceable. We can't enforce an occupancy limit.
okay. So then just leave it out?
Right, and my recollection from our conversations is that was one of the reasons why we turned instead to having there be 1 parking spot per bedroom, to try to limit it that way, come at it from a different angle.
Right, so then we'll have potentially 4, 8, 12 people instead of 15 maybe, I don't know, because 4 people go in a car.
It's 3 bedrooms and 3 to a room would be 9, or whatever. I wonder if people should,
They'll park at the plaza and take an Uber.
I'm just gonna say that, and they're all gonna just be dropped off.
right,
I don't think we're gonna get it perfect today.
Yeah, my only concern is that, Airbnbs, I mean, sometimes you have visitors come over as well, and so they're not technically staying there, but I think the overnight parking language that we added gets to that, but
Hmm.
tricky.
so you don't think we should try to put an occupancy limit?
No, it's sounding like that would be a bad idea.
Oh, okay, I don't want to hold it up over something that's a bad idea. Should we have a requirement that as something they need to do, and I don't know where it would fit, is to post the license at that house?
That's already a requirement in the old one, so yeah, that should be in there.
Yeah,
So,
Conspicuous locations such as the inside of a cabinet door or something like that.
so if you're renting an apartment long-term, you have to have it
Yep.
visible. Yeah.
okay, but short-term?
Shouldn't matter, they definitely should have emergency contact information listed at the place. If the water heater goes and
Okay,
it
so I'm
starts to
going to
leak.
rent one of these, and I want to know that it's the owner's doing things correctly, and the sign for that, to me, would be, I can see their license.
Oh, you mean post a license? Sure, we post a license for, if you go into McDonald's, you can see the license on
Right,
the
that
wall,
they-
sure.
If your house is available for short-term rental, that you're posting that license.
You can do that and require the posting of the
Contact number?
contact information. That
contact.
definitely should be in,
Okay, so where would that fit? I don't, Mara will fit it
At the
in,
bottom of the,
in the correct place.
at the end of it, a copy of this license shall be posted on the premises alongside the contact information.
well, it should go into number 3.
Yeah, let's squeeze it in number 3.
Okay.
Because that's where you,
3C? Can we squeeze it into 3C?
yeah, I
Yeah.
think you can.
Okay, wherever you think it'd be good.
So what was sorry, I was trying to solve the
The license
LLC
should be posted on the premises in a conspicuous place.
Okay,
And also, they should be putting we could make the license have all that information in it, but it generally won't have all that contact information, but the contact information should be there.
Along with the contact information for the responsible party.
Right.
I mean, things are electronic now, I get it, they probably could just go to their thing and,
They might have to change that contact information while they're not changing the license, like, say they have a person who,
yeah, they can update that
the
if they want.
cleaning
without
person might be
changing the license. Sure.
responsible, and then they get a new cleaning person, so they put a new card up.
Erica, you guys do they do that in all Airbnbs now, or no?
We asked them to post their license in a frame in the living room or kitchen, just so that they have that ready to
What about
go.
emergency contact information?
Um,
Is that you?
that's us, and it's on your permit. They fill me out with my name, and that goes on their wall.
Okay, so we can make the permit look like that, so we
Yeah.
just post the permit, and I can make the permit look whatever we want to make the
Or
permit.
the license.
okay, that sounds good.
Yeah, it
Add
says
it.
emergency contact, and
Put a
they
bow.
always fill in the real estate company.
Mhm.
So on yours, we'll put your picture there.
Perfect.
Okay, so this is good. Moving on, we got to the 3rd page. We might actually make it.
All right.
Inspection. Scott, this is your
Well,
bailiwick.
as long as it says may. As long as it says may. The shall makes it a little tricky. Yeah, so this wouldn't work for what I would call an occupant. So an occupant does not have to let us in, correct? So-
Where are we?
I'm sorry,
It's
inspections.
7.
Well, whenever you get a chance. I don't want you to rush it more.
No, I think I have a good proposal for the LLC thing for later. All right,
Okay?
So
I'm all
short-term,
yours, Scott.
no, short-term rentals may be subject to to inspection by the Falmouth Health, blah, blah, blah. That doesn't imply that a tenant would have to allow us to enter into the dwelling without permission. Those rules still apply.
right,
This is meaning that we may schedule an inspection at some point.
right.
Yeah, periodically or whatever.
Unless there's like an immediate safety hazard.
Right, little fire, rescue, to have that ability, yes, yeah.
Yes, you've got that exactly right.
So is that there? How about
That works.
violations?
And that would be,
Another
and the
place.
details of that would be addressed if, on the regulation end.
Okay. Number 9 and 10 seem to go together, and this is just my own ignorance of the law, I guess. What is this with about a civil penalty? What does that mean?
Well, remember, we had a discussion about how you wanted to have a larger fine, and I insisted that it couldn't be more than $300.
Right, I do.
I was wrong, Charlotte. And I found when I was drafting this that Provincetown tried something new when this was passed at their April town meeting. And they looked really hard at Chapter 64G, which is the taxation statute for short-term rentals. And buried in there is this allowance at Section 14V that says that municipalities can assess a fine of up to $5,000 specifically for short-term rentals. So it lives outside this maximum $300 fine that municipalities are usually allowed to assess for civil penalties. And the AG's office approved it. And that's all I needed to know, and it went
Wow.
right in here.
Awesome.
It's awesome.
So there'll be 2 different kinds of civil penalties allowed, and the difference is, the civil penalty at Section 10 would likely be assessed during a hearing. Like if there was a series of violations, or even just one bad night where there's a bunch of stuff that went wrong, and the owner of the short-term rental was requested to come before the Board of Health for a hearing for suspension or revocation, and were found, and they were egregious, that would be the instance where you would start levying these $5,000 fines. The non-criminal disposition in Section 10 is intended for civil ticketing. So in instances where Scott's department goes out and they find something like the trash is put in the wrong place, or little things like they didn't post the license in a conspicuous place, then you issue a ticket, you give it to you mail it to the homeowner's address for $300. Hopefully they just pay it. It's just a little like, you didn't do this
Yeah.
right. Whereas the 5,000 civil penalty that's for when things are serious.
Great.
Nice.
Very nice, and thank you, Provincetown. That was good of them to do
That's
that.
awesome, yeah.
That was.
Okay. Authority of the Board of Health? Issues? And severability looks pretty standard.
Yeah, it's good.
And then the effective date, I don't know if we want to have a discussion about when, like the timing of this, because do we want to wait for our computer program, whatever it's going to be, to,
Probably.
yes?
Well, I don't know when that's going to happen,
Why
right?
can't they step it up?
Because we haven't hired him yet.
Well,
Okay,
yeah.
so in typical, so the sales, when you start getting into the detail of the sales, it's packaged, okay? So things are packaged, and I don't know, so I stopped everything and I said, what's package A, package B, package C? Because, you know, you're like, oh, we're enhanced this and enhanced that. Oh, okay, so Jed, you follow what I'm saying? So we gotta dial in the money part, okay? You know, we're not just gonna go into a contract, sign it because we feel good about it. I'm detailed. You know, the details are important when it comes to signing
Okay,
a
one of the
contract.
details that we had down here is we were trying to make the town meeting
No,
in
no, no,
November,
you
so
can't,
that this
well,
would be
you're not,
effective next year for
Fine.
the next big rental.
we can do this by paper if we had to, right? So we'd have to, right, so I guess the first year, we would have the same 250 list, and we would apply, this bylaw would now apply to the ones that are applying now.
Well, it
On
applies to
permit
everyone.
acts, right?
And you hope, it applies to everyone, and you hope
No,
that.
no, right, but I'm saying, like, what would happen to us in a reality is, what
Yeah.
I'm saying is, if you made this January 1st, we already have rental registration on permitize, okay? So we would just have to kind of manually add whatever needs to be added in here when we issue a permit. We might have to change the application, right? Make the application meet this, but we don't actually have to do anything, because we already have this built into Permitize, our already online software. What this company does is gives us the other 2,863 that aren't registering. Then, when it becomes now very hard to manage, because there's thousands, helps us get them registered. So we already have a software program where somebody could sit there in California and apply for a rental permit. So it would probably look the same on their end. I would change the application to add these things. Are you a sole owner? Do you have any others? Blah, blah, blah. Have you read this? They've signed that they've read this new bylaw. So I think you can have the bylaw go in January 1st, because it really doesn't change what we do.
Want to make it April 1st, and if we're not ready, we'll say we were kidding?
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
I mean, does it make a difference? Is January better, or would April be good?
Well, then you're gonna have two sets of rules. So if somebody applies for their 2025 permit in earlier than April, they're gonna be under the old rules. Then I would have to look at the application date to enforce parking.
So January 1st is better?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think so.
nice and clean.
Okay.
Starts a brand new
January
calendar year.
1st is that date.
Yeah, it just won't be ugly that first year if we don't have the system baked in.
First years usually are.
And then the second year is I'm gonna go back to GovOS and hate half the things that we did and make them modify it again, because it's gonna take years before we get this dialed in, probably 2 years.
Mhm.
Before we, at the health department, who have to deal with it, dial it in. Because we're gonna have to hire somebody.
Well, you have to
That's not gonna happen January 1st.
develop a job description, you have to
Yeah.
post it, you have to hire somebody, you have to break them in, and there's a
But
lot
we-
that needs to be done.
But we can facilitate their registration, correct?
Yeah, what's that?
I mean, if we put this January 1st,
Yeah.
and the town meeting adopts it, they can still register. We just can't really enforce or effectively manage it? Is that what you
Well,
mean?
the management part, well, no, we'll have the same, this isn't hideously different from what the original bylaw is, it's more detailed. So the bylaw now is register. The bylaw now is register with all these other things. It doesn't change how we register,
Mhm.
right? So we would say, hey, look, this is the new regulation that you have to apply for. We can, then I'll have to build a temporary application if we don't have, if the GovOS company takes a whole year to do it. The 2025 will be sort of like me making up a quick application, changing permit eyes a little bit to sort of match this, and then getting the really beautiful stuff starting in 2026. That's
Okay.
how I look at it.
Well, if we vote it and we put a date on it, maybe things will move faster.
The only thing you won't have on this is a license fee, but we took that off, right? You took that part off.
No, we did not take it off, we left it blank.
Yes,
That's the
that's
very
what I meant by
important
taking it
part.
off.
But to be
That's what I-
determined annually by the select board.
Okay.
But we ought to be talking about how much, because you need to support at least 2 or 3 or more people.
Well, that'll happen at the time that we click on GovOS, or whatever company we choose. That's when the list starts flying in, okay?
Let me put it differently, I wonder what the other towns are charging.
Okay,
Yeah, we'll
so
do an assessment of that.
that's
So
easy.
a fee is supposed to be a representation of the work that goes into processing the license. And that's a great starting place, but it's always helpful to see what other communities are doing, so it'll fit somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah, it'll be somewhere in there, but it has to cover GovOS or whatever the management company is.
Yeah.
It has to cover at least 2 people who aren't employees yet, I would think, and all their benefits.
And just for clarity's sake, the select board would need to set the fee at their hearing where they adopt this, or at least recommend this to town meeting.
Yes.
Correct.
Fee-
So it would need to have a fee before it gets to town meeting.
Yes.
I would
When's
think
the
so.
fee- When's the
A
fee here?
dollar amount.
Mm,
No?
No.
Did they set it later?
They could set it later,
Okay.
Yeah, if I may.
All right.
yeah.
Since we're not changing anything, we're probably next year, GovOS has to write the program. Like, it's not gonna happen by January. So maybe the transition year is the regulations in place. There's no more heavy lifting. We're only gonna, until we plug in GovOS, I don't need the bodies.
Yeah.
That can happen later. The fee doesn't need to change much because we're still gonna do it internally. We do it by staff now for the 250 or 300 on this regulation. Then when we flip the switch to turn on GovOS, we better have the bodies there to support it. So that whole hiring process in GovOS can be clicked in November of this year, next year, or it could be the year after. So I think the fee doesn't necessarily have to change much this year, because I don't think next year we're gonna be walking and rolling with the 2,000 of them.
So you'd be using the fee that you currently assess for a rental permit?
Yeah, or, yeah, well,
What do you charge now?
so since 1975 until last year, it was $25,
And what is it now?
50.
So it's cheap, but we know that there are at least, what, 1,500 of these now who are registered here? That's the
200.
multiplier?
200 now.
200
That's all we have right now. Yeah,
that are registered.
correct, around 200, give or take 25,
Locally?
locally.
can we access the state registry?
Okay, so
and
that's
get
what
their
the,
number? Because their number is very different from that,
yes,
very different. And
yes.
can we then contact those people?
That's what GovOS does.
They will do that.
That's what we're
And
hiring them
those people
for.
will start paying.
Yes, and GovOS is gonna go after them and figure, well, we're gonna do a lot of heavy lifting as well. Yes, that's what the software company does for us.
That third-party vendor.
That
Because
third-party
Because it
vendor.
may end up not being GovOS, it could be
Because knowing
someone
that
else.
I'm using it as an
multiplier-
example, but,
Yeah, yeah.
Knowing the multiplier is what's going to allow you to set an initial number.
right, so the GovOS, let's say, for example, or JED, we'll call it JED's, short-term rental scrubbing company, might charge $100,000 annually for their services, which will be scrubbing humans and AI and helping us with the registration. Then you're gonna have 2 staff members, so you're gonna need to bring in $300,000 minimum for those 2,000 rentals. What's that mean? How much is that? $600? No, I mean $300. So, like, I don't know what that fee's
I
gonna
think
be,
it's
but
gonna run like 1,000 apiece, but you'd have to look and see, and I don't
most
think that
towns
you're
are in
gonna
that
pass
200.
town meeting without a budget.
Yeah, we
Think
don't
about
want to
it.
be too crazy with the fee. I mean, if it can cover the cost, but it still has to be somewhat reasonable. It would be
That's
nice
not
to know,
unreasonable.
1,000?
Right.
It's not unreasonable?
Think how much they're planning to make. They'll make that in one weekend.
No.
Erica, isn't that true?
Well, they will make it in one weekend, but $1,000 is a hard check to write.
It is.
Yeah, so maybe
I was thinking
half
it
of
would be,
that?
at the most, I was thinking 200 or 300. I don't know. I didn't do the math.
That's the highest I've seen is 250, the highest I've
Yeah.
seen. I think, well, you may know more than I about that.
No, but
So
I've
then,
been
what you're saying is
investigating.
maybe this working group's recommendation to the select board is what you find it to be appropriate.
Maybe,
rather than
maybe
a number.
250? I
It'd
mean,
be, yeah, it would be
I
best to
think
set the
one
fee
of the
once you
ways
knew
we're
how
gonna
many.
limit the spread of short-term rentals is to take some of the profit out of it. That's what we need to
well,
do.
we gotta,
If you can earn such an incredible amount of money doing this, the incentive to do it is enormous.
So,
not
And
that,
you're also
what's
creating a
going on.
department and a staff and and doing a lot of work to register the rentals and then collecting a fee for it. From a public health standpoint, you're not doing a ton of work. It's gonna be still complaint-based.
so setting the fee is beyond the scope of this working group. The select board will make that determination. It has to be based on the amount of work that goes into it and not any other factor. And they'll take a look and find something that's appropriate.
And
And
I,
Okay.
I would like, one of our recommendations to the select board to recognize that we need to set the fee high enough that the fee itself has a certain cautionary aspect.
So that's not an appropriate criteria to set a fee.
And it will scare them underground. They won't even register.
right.
But I think $250, who is that?
That's me. I don't know what
I think $250, if we have 1,000 rentals, it's $250,000. So I think we can cover the expenses with
Thank you.
And we have 2,000
$250,
probably.
$300. Huh?
And I think we have like 2,000.
We do, yeah.
well, that's $400,000 up to $250.
Right, so I think 250 or 300 max.
I just don't think the cost of the management of this and enforcement of it should fall on the taxpayers.
It is
It
me.
should fall on.
What happened?
It's
It's over. Our time is up.
Yeah, we have to adjourn, it's too late.
So
No,
can
no,
I
we're
just
just
make
humming.
a recommendation for the LLC fix?
Yes.
Yes,
please.
okay. So what about this? So the goal is to make sure that we don't have one person making a bunch of LLCs and then different LLCs and then submitting an application.
Or a corporation doing it.
Well, corporations, you can't, I think we fixed the corporation thing because corporations are not allowed to have licenses and you can't be a
Specific.
But
corporation
they
as
could-
part of an LLC.
And they can't own the LLC.
Right.
Okay.
So I think this does it.
Tom's got his hand up again.
So this would be added as another section, under section 5, ownership of short-term rentals. And it would say, no natural person who is a shareholder, partner, or member of an LLC shall be entitled to hold more than one license, either as an individual or as part of a legal entity,
That sounds good.
Right,
right?
right. Mr. Crane,
I will say Tom Crane again. I think that's excellent language. I would just urge the committee to have that also applied to trust. I think if you just add trust in that language or at the end trustee, I think you grab it. But it's pretty easy to, individuals just to form a property trust or whatever. And I think the same concern that you've addressed with LLCs, I ask you to consider with trusts. Corporations is clearly handled. Thank you.
Thank you, he's right.
So then, I would just, following that, then I would just say, no natural person who's a member, who's a partner, shareholder, member of an LLC or trust.
Right,
Okay.
right, thank
Good.
you.
Thank you.
Are we ready for a motion?
I think that we are. Would you like to move?
I would move that we approve this with the edits as noted by town council.
Is there a second?
Second, yeah.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I am regulated. I have never in my life voted for a regulation. I will never vote for or
What does
against.
that do to our quorum?
You've got it, right? You have 4 in the
I mean,
membership?
do you not like the bylaw?
It's not that.
I'm just messing with
Right, so the Board of Health makes regulations, I don't vote on them, I enforce them, I'm a goalie, I'm an umpire. All balls and strikes, it's just a thing with me.
I understand it's important to you, but we have a quorum, right?
Yeah.
So therefore, it is approved. Thank you very much.
Great, and
Awesome.
We'll entertain a motion now to adjourn.
So moved.
All right.
Hey.
thank you all.
Second?
Thank you all very much.